Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. And today is Wednesday, and I'm back in studio with our engineer, Mike Herzog. How's it going today, Mike?
Doing okay, David. It's a dreary day out there. It makes me kind of sleepy, but it's that time of year, I suppose.
I've heard a lot of that today because, yeah, it is odd. It's like winter for us isn't so much about snow and cold, it's just always dreary.
It's dreary. It's gray.
Yeah,
Gray for sure.
yeah.
It's straight. Yeah.
Thankfully, we don't have a monsoon season or anything like that here. Any of that crazy stuff they have in some of the tropical climates or whatever.
When
But
they say it's the rainy season, it's the rainy season. It
yeah,
rains.
except for that, what was it, about 6 years ago, and they had all that rain in the spring on top of the heavy snow from the winter, and then we had all that flooding, and somehow the water just never went away in some places.
Yeah.
There's still some lakes over in Iowa and some exits that never got fixed on the
A
interstate.
lot of
A
standing
couple
water.
little
Yeah.
a couple little towns got wiped out. It's
Mhm.
really bizarre how that occurred. But anyways, we're going to talk about weather a little bit today. But starters, I want to talk about Canoe. And Canoe is a small EV company that is public. It's the one that I've lambasted on here before because they spend twice as much money on private jet rental as they had in revenue.
It's not a
You
good look.
know,
Not a good
yeah,
look.
it's not a real good look. It's like, is your time really that important? If you have no revenue, anyways. But Canoe recently furloughed a quarter of its workers, and I just like the story from this article. It says Canoe's furloughing of nearly a quarter of its workers feels more like moving the chairs around on the deck of the Titanic than a fix.
Yeah, I mean it's really one of those. It's not a good sign for sure. And yeah, I don't. They're not producing vehicles. I mean, you need people to do the work. So I good luck,
Yeah,
Canoe. I don't know what else to say.
yeah, they're furloughing 30 workers for 12 weeks. So what is that? 3 months? I know that doesn't sound like much, but it's nearly a quarter of Canoe's workforce. So they currently were at 120, but they had 800 people back in 2021. Um, Now, Canoe's one of these companies that got the cool looking, boxy kind of
Mhm.
futuristic vans and stuff like that. And it's one of those companies that I've always kind of hoping that somebody like a General Motors or a Ford or a Stellantis or somebody would jump in and acquire them because there is demand for their vehicles.
Yeah.
So they're just not really producing, and they sold only 22 vehicles in 2023, and they only have about 4.5 million in cash and cash equivalents. And this is despite the fact that it has government contracts with the Department of Defense, NASA, the Postal Service, and the state of Oklahoma. So I mean, you'd think somebody would step in to acquire them just
Just
to
for the
have the
contract.
inroads for those federal and state
Yeah, just to
contracts.
get those values. Because out of that 22, I mean, God, I didn't think they had a commercial sale. I thought those were more almost demonstration vehicles or anything. And some of the stuff they were looking at for NASA wasn't even like roadworthy, right? I mean, it was just, drive around facilities,
Right.
drive around bases, drive around runways, just people movers on those bigger locations.
Yeah, I saw something where some employees had said, well, they made some of these vehicles, they didn't even put airbags in them because they were just demonstrators.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of things they sort of left out. And, it's like Musk always said, building the demonstrator isn't really the challenge. It's being able to actually go into production.
Yeah.
And
I
I don't
agree with
know.
you though. I mean, just those contracts and like with some of the other smaller ones, they have to be doing something right, from a technology standpoint or um, from a design standpoint. There's got to be some value that a GM or Stellantis or one of those bigger organizations can get by getting that technology too. It just if they're eroding people and they're hemorrhaging cash, seems like this might be the time to come in and make a move.
Yeah, So I'll give you an example. Canoe needs money. Aptera needs money because they have like 50,000 pre-orders. So Range Rover recently announced they would take pre-orders for electric Range Rovers. What do you think that they've already had 48,000 pre-orders for Range Rovers. Now, do you
Wow.
think Range Rover will financially be able to do that?
If they haven't done it yet, no. I mean, if they have to build something from the ground up, good luck.
Um, the first vehicles are supposed to be to the public by the end of this year.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
good for them. I hadn't. That's
yeah.
another one of those companies I hadn't heard much about what they're doing in this space at all.
But what I'm getting at is they're a company. You suspect they probably have the cash. That if they have the orders, they can go out and build them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's unlike some of these other companies like Canoe that somehow they just don't have the cash to make this work. And it's aggravating kind of to see where there's all these companies that have demand. They're just having a hard time with that whole going from point A to point B because they just don't have the cash for it. And it's something that we want to see happen. You know, we'd like to see these
Yeah.
companies make it, but it takes a lot of cash to make these things happen. Now, you and I talked before about electric police cars in California. Didn't we do
I
South
think so. That's
Pasadena or
fine.
something like
Yeah.
that? Yeah. So the California Highway Patrol is now testing Lucid as a prospective police car. Now, what's
Hmm.
interesting about the Lucid Air is this is the super efficient EV. That gets was it 5 miles per kilowatt hour?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
They're
it's
awesome.
like
Yeah, they're all
they're the
kinds of.
most effective electric motor. And uh, but it says here Lucid Pursuit vehicle. That's what they're how they have one set up there. That looks pretty cool. I mean, Lucid's nice looking. I mean, we're used to seeing them more in the stainless steel reflective. And but the California Highway Patrol could be branching out into the world of electric cars soon enough. See, currently the CHP operates Ford Explorers, Dodge Chargers, and a fleet of BMW motorcycles. So the battery-powered Lucid would mark the departure from the gas-powered fleet. Well, they're talking about ranging from 420 horsepower for the base model Lucid Air to the 1200 horsepower for the Air Sapphire. The power band of the Air range should be plenty for the law enforcement agency.
That's
Car
I'm
chase.
highlighting myself because it's if they're buying Sapphire for the highway
Yeah,
patrol, I might have some issues as a taxpayer in California.
that
But the
that might
lower
be the
model stuff,
Dubai
sure.
police.
Yeah,
It'd be in Dubai that they'd be doing
yeah,
the Air
the police
Sapphire,
force
right?
driving Sapphires around.
Right. Yeah. But the 0 to 100 in 3.8 second EV should be enough of a deterrent for even the fastest motorcycles. God, I couldn't imagine that. It's just so nuts to think about going 0 to 100 that fast. Holy crap. I just imagine just a lot of accidents while they're accelerating, you know. Um, Now, the plus side is they have a range of 400 to 480 miles. So that they're really at the top of range. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they are such an efficient EV. It's nice looking, you
I
know.
think that looks sharp. I think that looks really sharp. Yeah, it looks futuristic and a couple interior changes, and I bet they could roll those out. And when you talk about a police force with a lot of similar to a lot of other fleets out there, I bet you could do the economics really quick. They, their mileage, and the biggest thing with law enforcement and other ones, it's idling. They lose so much fuel over idling because those cars are on. They have to be ready to go the entire time. When you're out on patrol or when you're doing a speed trap or whatever it is. Whereas, these, yeah, if you're not moving, yeah, your radio's going, your electronics, but you're not burning anything else. So I bet there's a lot of potential gains from the economic equation on that if you're looking at it from a police force standpoint.
You know what's kind of interesting is there was somebody who did some evaluations of the real cost of electric police cars and stuff like that. And oddly, the vehicle that they felt that's currently in manufacture that's the most ideal is the F-150 Lightning.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that they're actually there was a couple of issues. One is backseat space to actually haul prisoners or
Mhm.
suspects, and just all the general kind of features of having everything that a police car would normally have in it. And the F-150 actually satisfies all of those. Because that's one of the things is most of your EV cars don't have real big back seats. There's
Mm-mm.
exceptions, like if you were in a Tesla Model S, but they all are doing Model 3s and Model Ys. And a Y has more space in the back seat than a 3, but still, um, that's a completely different play. Anyways, um, the next really major thing that you didn't know that you wanted to see is some weird Tesla news.
Oh,
Okay,
boy.
so a Miami hot rod shop has built the first dually Cybertruck. So they felt they needed a double axle in the rear so you can tow your horse trailer, which is probably not what anybody's actually going to do with this. Maybe you're going to tow your boat. You know, the idea is that
Mhm.
you can have a lot more weight on the rear end if you got that. I
Yeah,
don't know if they, um, I don't, I haven't looked at this really yet to see what
I
all they
mean, it's
did
I
here.
gotta imagine it's for tricking it out. I mean, it's which is neat to see that, aftermarket they're doing some of those things. I don't see that vehicle towing a whole lot. I see
No,
I see it cruising the streets with the windows down, but
well,
I don't see that
generally, if
functioning.
you have the four wheels in the back, you have that fifth wheel mount in the rear so that you can tow a big trailer. You know, not a
Mhm.
trailer hitch, but one that is a sizable trailer, like maybe holds four or more horses in
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
or a car or something like that. A long trailer, not a little like work trailer or something like that.
No,
But
no. I mean, those are like a ranch truck, or a farm truck, the like
right,
350 or something. The people that actually need those things, or a
yeah.
250. Yeah,
Look at those rims with the chariot spikes.
yeah. That's that's what I mean. Like, I don't see this hauling a horse trailer around Miami.
No, it's like, okay, it was difficult enough to park already. Now let's see if we can make it a little bit tougher to get it to fit into a parking space anywhere other than Costco.
Well, and then
But
putting a big heavy trailer on the back, they're really gonna test some rural bridges, out there, what their weight capacity
right,
is
no,
on some.
that's funny. Yeah, that would be kind of crazy. So, Chinese cell phone maker Xiaomi just rolled out their 100,000th EV. 230 days of production. They've already produced
What
100,000
was the name of the company
SU7
again?
electric sedans.
Xiaomi?
Yes.
God, I don't even know that one.
Oh yeah, they're big. They're big in the cell phone industry in Asia.
Yeah, yeah.
They're a
Okay.
giant over there, and we've covered them a few times. But the CEO paid homage to Elon Musk by taking pictures of himself sleeping on the factory floor for their celebration of this. Because it was known that Musk did that during the early days of Tesla. Let me see if they show it. Yeah, there's an SU7 right there. It
Oh,
really looks kind of like a Porsche Panamera.
Those are
And
good looking car.
yeah, um, Ford CEO Jim Farley has one in Chicago, and he really likes driving it. So he brought one over and said that he's really, into this particular vehicle. Um, and it's funny is let me see, 100,000. And they hit that milestone ahead of many well-known Chinese electric car makers. It took Li Auto almost 2 years. Neo and Xpeng each
Yeah.
took almost 3 years to hit the same number. It's there. I don't know. I don't know how this has kind of affected the company overall, but it's helped their stock. But I don't know, how this plays compared to what
Yeah.
they're doing in cell phones and all that. But it's amazing that they're able to produce this car. Now, I've seen plenty of articles about how the SU7 is kind of a junky car, but
Oh, really?
but at $30,000 or $35,000, it's half the price of anything that it performs or
Mhm.
looks similar to.
I was just
And
gonna ask you what the sticker price is. So it's 30s in there.
30 low 30s, low
Okay.
30s. Yeah. Of course, you can only buy it in Asia or in China, but
Yeah.
it's just, it's amazing that it's,
Yeah,
um,
that's crazy.
oh, let me see. You should have me on your phone company. um, and I'll be happy to. I have my email address posted in the show notes. You can you can generally figure out how to contact me through there. But anyways, yeah, it's just interesting to see that. It's not somebody you've heard of, but they
No.
started producing. It was exciting when they released the car. Um, but there are definitely some quality issues that it's had. But this cell phone company just jumped into making EVs. Um,
Mhm.
and it it's just astounding that they've gotten to where they're at. Yeah, well, I love
Well, that's what's so fun for me about being on this show, and it's a space and what's happening in China with EVs. Here's a company I wasn't very familiar with. It's like, yeah, we've already produced 100,000 vehicles. What? That's incredible. Like
well. So
that's
here's
phenomenal.
kind of the thing, and I talk about this a lot. So obviously you got the CEO who runs a cell phone company. They've been a success in the cell phone field. I don't know about the whole idea of them jumping into EVs, but this guy had previously proven that he can execute in this other space.
Yep.
Okay. And they have the cash. So that makes a big difference too. Having the money and the ability to execute are huge. And so they've been able to do this. And so then when we look at somebody like Canoe, who's struggling, even though they have these big contracts. Um, it's interesting to see. I don't have confidence in their management that they can execute, nor do they have the cash to execute. Okay, but we're going to talk about somebody else here in a second who's kind of got it, really going on.
Mhm.
So our next topic is going back to the Rivian and Volkswagen joint venture. So they've now upped the dollar figure to 5.8 billion, and they are finalizing the project. Um, Part of the deal is supposed to be a joint venture software company for both
Mhm.
companies. Now, one of the things that's interesting is, Volkswagen launched the Scout division, which is going to sell basically similar looking vehicles and
Very similar looking. Yeah.
using the same direct to consumer sales model as Rivian. And so it's cool to see this, but
So we
they're
can assume it's going to be shared technology, right? I mean, what you're going
yes, it's
to
going
get
to be
in a
shared
Rivian is going to
technology.
look a lot like what you get in a Scout, at least the brains behind it.
Well, one of the things is Rivian has all these orders for their new products, the R2 and the R3. They had held up some of the production, but they're going to have the ability, because they're going to have cash, that they can bring these things to market. And they've got like 50,000 pre-orders just for the R2.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's huge what they can deliver. Now, in world numbers, I think there's like 20 million cars or something like that, or more new cars sold worldwide, maybe a much bigger figure than that. It's a huge number. So when you look at the overall number of sales of cars in the world, it's sort of a drop in the bucket,
Mhm.
but it's still. It's getting out there, and there is demand, and it's a matter of being able to produce. You always say, oh, EV sales aren't doing anything. Well, the problem is it's getting the EVs to market. Tesla has the advantage of, if you order a Tesla, you're going to get it sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
Okay, so they're really on top of things, and with maybe the exception of the Cybertruck. But there are other vehicles, you're going to get it pretty quick. If you order an EV from Mercedes or BMW, you're probably driving it home today.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some companies obviously out there that are executing. We were talking yesterday, BMW and Mercedes are exceeding the EV mandate goals of the British government in the UK.
Oh, wow.
They have this, we're supposed to be hitting these targets.
Yeah.
They're more than hitting the targets already. And, it's just kind of fascinating to see how quickly some of that is moving along.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah.
All right. So let's go to one of our main topics for today. The Toyota says California electric vehicle mandate is impossible to meet. Now, the criticism obviously is what EVs are they making? Well, the only one that Toyota makes is the Busy Forks. And that's an SUV that, for the price, does not have great range, doesn't really offer anything special. And they also sell it, Subaru also sells it as a Solterra. It's the same vehicle. Okay. And so the problem is that they've really only entered with one vehicle. They overpriced it. And it's just not exceptional in its space. Toyota's, a name that is synonymous with quality, durability, things like that. Now, we're not going to deny that Toyota's at the top of their game in the hybrid space.
In the hybrid space, I mean, they are like Prius. I mean, that is the vehicle that launched it. I mean, they're
right. Yeah, the Prius is a monster for them. That Toyota Sienna hybrid minivan that gets 36 miles per gallon city and highway.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, and good luck getting one of those. You're on at least a 1 year waiting list. It's nuts.
Those are selling through the roof. Well, and they're plug-in hybrid options. I mean, they're moving into that space. But I was smiling earlier because I saw that headline earlier, and the response from people was, "So you mean the thing you've made no effort to achieve, you're saying you can't achieve?"
Yes.
What did you expect?
And I've heard Toyota talk about other things. They're talking about how EVs are going to cost lots of jobs in Japan. Because there's less parts. There's so many things that are reduction. So according to the California New Car Dealers Association, 25.6% of new vehicles were all electric or plug-in hybrids in the third quarter of 2024. This is California only.
California sales.
Yeah.
25%. Wow.
And 11 additional states and the District of Columbia have agreed to meet California's zero-emission light passenger vehicles standards, with some starting California targets in model year 26 and the rest in model year 27. So even though federal mandates are on January 20th or whatever are going out the window, we've already been put on notice that that's happening. That'll happen by executive action. You have, but that only affects at the federal level. So you've got 12 states in the District of Columbia that'll be on this same electric vehicle mandate. Now, we've talked about this before. I'm not a fan of mandates, okay? But the incentives are out there, and it really does seem, especially in California, they're pretty much on track. And Toyota may not be on track. So the Toyota CEO for North America, or Chief Operating Officer for North America, Jack Hollis, says demand isn't there. It's going to limit a customer's choice of the vehicles they want. And I've not seen a forecast by anyone, government or private, anywhere that has told us that number is achievable. At this point, it looks impossible. Now, the only thing I can really go on is when you compare where we are in California to, say, the Scandinavian countries, okay, particularly the path Norway is. So Norway was at a certain point 10 years ago, and California hit that same point about 4 years ago, and they're about where Norway was
Following the
6 years ago.
same
Yeah, and
trajectory.
they're on that same trajectory. And I think that you start seeing this in each country um, as they hit certain targets, they seem to move on. Yeah, well, there's no question that Toyota is the leader in hybrid tech.
They're the hybrids.
Um,
Yeah, of course.
now,
They definitely want to push that.
now worldwide, they're number two to BYD in plug-in hybrids, but still, and just the pure hybrids overall. I mean, Toyota is slowly phasing out all of their gas-only vehicles and moving over to hybrid, and it makes sense because there's obviously there's these standards that are coming out, but you see, I think consumer demand is moving that space anyways. Um, well, and I think BYD has stated that their target is Toyota, so um, there's kind of no question. Let's see, Stellantis, which owns Jeep, made gasoline-powered non-hybrids available only as special order vehicles in California and other states that have adopted California Air Resources Board standards. I know if you go looking for cars that qualify for the $4,000 used tax credit, you can find some Jeep plug-in hybrids.
Jeep
They're
plug-in
not,
hybrids?
yeah, there's not very many of them.
Yeah.
They're rare to find, but they do exist. And I don't think they had a very big plug-in battery or anything like that.
Yeah.
But there was some effort to have some of that. And some of them, this is the thing, there's a whole lot of Fords that nobody really heard, like the Ford Energy. And there's a few just oddball, unless you're just looking for the list of used cars that are out there. A lot of these cars were made between like 2012 and 2016 when nobody was actually looking for plug-in
Nobody was
hybrids,
looking for them, so they made them for a couple of years and
and
had a couple of
there was
sales.
no demand. And now that there are people actually out there looking for them, the vehicles really barely exist. And so this has been kind of frustrating because you kind of keep getting an issue of the cart before the horse. And so one area where EVs and hybrids have really made a dent is you hardly ever see any more diesel cars.
Very few.
Yeah, so EVs have kind of wiped out diesel, both in the US and a lot of in Europe as well. You just don't see as much, because you used to have all the diesel Mercedes, had all the diesel Volvos, lots of other brands.
Volkswagen,
And
we don't talk about those.
yeah, oh yeah, Dieselgate. Yeah, the Ford Fusion plug-in hybrid, they made that from like, I think 12 to maybe 15, 14 to 16, somewhere in there. That's always one of the ones that comes up on the list. The thing is, they were only really, I think, available on the West Coast for the plug-in, and the regular hybrid, it only got like 10% better gas mileage, and it cost 10% more. I mean, from a consumer perspective,
doesn't balance.
Yeah, it just never really made sense. I think the Fusion's kind of a nice looking car. It's a shame that Ford doesn't make them anymore. Not the hybrid, just the Fusion in general. They just, yeah, but they got rid of all of their cars.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but let's see. So they're going to start fining these companies that want to sell cars in California. So under the Advanced Clean Cars 2 mandate that starts with model year 2026 vehicles, automakers must either sell enough cars or buy enough credits for the equivalent of 35% of their vehicles sold in California to qualify as zero-emission vehicles, of which 20% can be plug-in hybrids, and at least 15% of which must be all electric. So in other words, 35% of vehicles have to be either electric or plug-in hybrid, 15% battery, and 20% plug-in hybrid. Well, they're already at a 25% figure. I think they're already above that 15% electric.
Is 25 already?
No, that's combined. That's
Oh,
the
that's
two
combined.
numbers combined.
Okay,
And
okay.
I'm not, but I think they're right at 20% of that. And the other bit is plug-in hybrids. The thing is, you don't have a lot of plug-in hybrid offerings. Okay, so that's an area that really hasn't been addressed real well by the manufacturers. And if you think about it from the perspective, you're making two powertrains in one vehicle. You're having to support both the electric system and the gas system in the same car. I'm sure it's expensive to do that. And but if the automakers will pay a $20,000 fine for for every credit they are short. So if they sold 100,000 cars and only 30,000 of them hit the number, that other 5,000 they'd be
Another
paying a
5,000. Yeah.
$20,000 fine each. So
And
then they have to
when was
buy
that drafted?
credits. Well, here's the deal: they have to buy credits from automakers with excess credits or sell fewer
Like the old
non-zero. And
cap
this
and
is what the
trade.
guy's saying.
Yeah.
Tesla makes a fortune off of selling those credits because Tesla only sells electric
Only so they're
vehicles.
100%. Yeah,
Right.
they've got a lot
Yeah.
of credits to sell.
Right. So, Tesla is well positioned. There's no question. Man, have you seen how much their stock's gone up? It's gone up like
Oh,
50% in the past
since
10
the
days.
election, yeah, it has just taken off. It's
Yeah. It's wild to see what's going on. I don't know. I think so. I can see Toyota bitching about this. Okay. Because it's like 0.5% or less of their sales in California probably qualify. They're really off base. But then when you look at the total California number, it's heavily influenced because Tesla's still selling half of all EVs.
Mhm.
Okay. So if you took out of there, if you pulled the Teslas out of there, number two currently, now this is nationwide in the US. Right now, it's Tesla, General Motors, Ford, Hyundai, and all the GM, Ford, Hyundai are all about the same. It's just a minuscule difference between
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
And what's amazing is with Ford, you're only really talking two vehicles, right?
The Lightning and the
And the
Mustang.
Mach-E.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with the others, Hyundai's got quite a few. And or at least they got, what is it? They got the EV6, the EV9, and Kia. They've got what do you? I forget the
I think that
Ionic, the
those are
Ionic 5 and
yeah.
6
Yep.
with Hyundai, but I don't think that's
Yeah.
all. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think that's all they have. But anyways, I'm just saying that there's a lot that goes there. But this standard is also going to apply to Massachusetts, New York, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington for model year 2026. And then in 2027, it's going to include Colorado, Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, New Mexico, Rhode Island, and Washington, D.C.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So while California shouldn't be that hard to hit, those other states
Those other states,
probably are
they haven't
way
gone
behind.
that path before. Yeah, that's going to be a toughie.
Yeah. And of course, this is, going to that. I don't know that one. Maybe I may have to agree with Toyota. That's going to be really hard to hit, but I don't think it's going to be hard to hit in California. Toyota could just mandate themselves that they only are putting, dumping plug-in hybrids in that state. I mean, they make a nice plug-in
That
hybrid
feels
now.
like the answer, right? Where it's, well, you just have to, if you're not going to hit it, you have to adjust your sales in that location. Like
Right.
you cannot buy this vehicle. We're not going to ship to California, anything that's not one of these anymore, which I'm sure is not a good thing for them. But on the same on the same hand, it's one of those things like, well, it's that or $100,000, for each one you miss by.
Right. $20,000 is a pretty big hit that they've got to go through. I think Ford is positioned for this. Okay. I think obviously, oh yeah, 300,000 EVs. I mean, those are all Kias. And you're going to see a lot more. They're well positioned for this. But Toyota, not so much. I mean, they've got to come up with a better offering than the Busy Forks. And I don't see any, folks. It's actually the BZ4X. Okay, BZ4X. It's just easier for me to remember it by saying busy forks. Okay, but anyways, I'm just saying they should be able to get on board with that, and I think there's a demand if they are producing the right vehicles, but they didn't do a good job with the one SUV they decided to bring to America. Um, you know, GM is doing a wonderful job right now with EVs. Their sales keep going up, but maybe they want to be in the same place where GM was a couple of years ago and just be bitching and moaning. Um, I really don't know what to say about that. So one of my complaints is you hear people say, dealers say, well, people don't want EVs, but part of it is when the pricing is basically the same, and then you've got a choice of a vehicle that is cheaper to maintain, it's cheaper to fuel, easier to fuel, and there's a whole lot of long list. The only thing people can complain about is when they have to tow their boat up a mountain every day. Okay, I mean, really, there's not a whole lot of use cases. Yeah, somehow there always seems to be somebody
what you're
that
hitting
has
on, I
some
think,
reason.
is super interesting because it's if people actually looked at their daily habits, and what those things were and what they meant, and well, what if this? What if I need to go 350 miles? And how often do you have to do that? I mean, yes, there might be one situation every couple of years that's difficult for you, and you have to plan a little bit ahead. But your daily habit. That comment about, was that the Mirai, the Toyota
Yeah.
Mirai? Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. I don't even really know what to say about that. Mentioning wasting their time on hydrogen. Hydrogen, it's been around for a while. It's not like it's really new technology. And, we keep seeing these articles talking about how, hydrogen is going to solve all these problems. And it's just like, well, you and I know it's not. It's just too expensive.
Every time hydrogen comes up, I want to put a big question mark on the screen of like, I don't know. Where is it? What is it going to do? How's it going to work? One of the challenges with hydrogen versus electricity is just supply chain. A gas station has electricity. A grocery store has electricity. Everywhere is wired for electricity, but nowhere is wired for hydrogen. So it's just a delivery mechanism at its most basic. Like, yeah, power's everywhere, but hydrogen is not.
Well, I think you got a couple things here. So HG is saying Australia is a free market for EVs, and I don't know what Australia does for tariffs. I know if you bring an American car, like you ship a Camaro or something over there, it's twice as expensive in Australia, but I don't know what the reasoning is for that, if it's tariffs or just configuring it for the Australian market or whatever. But Australia has the benefit of they can buy pretty much all the Chinese EVs.
Mm-hmm.
So they have BYD, they have lots of other Chinese brands there. And Australia is an interesting ground for that. And we actually have a story on Australia coming up here in a few minutes
Nice.
that we're going to discuss how they're using EVs in Australia. But I don't know. I think you're seeing some changes, but the change in the administration with the Trump administration coming in, it's not really going to change what these states are doing. All of those states we listed, they're all Democrat states, they're all blue states, and they want to make this difference. And we've talked about this before. It's like the red states got all the manufacturing.
They got
The red states have all the manufacturing and jobs. Like we talk about Georgia. Do you think Georgia is going to want to see any of this money from the IRA go away? They didn't know they were going to get all this money. They didn't know they were going to get all these jobs. It was just like, what? We're getting 100,000 jobs for people in the EV sector. It's like, well, I guess we're all in on that.
Yeah.
I mean, we like that. That worked out. That was the one thing I complain all the time about the name of the IRA. it's the dumbest name ever for a bill, but that's not, it's like all those things, common sense gun laws or whatever. But, it's like, it has no relation to reducing inflation, but it is good for EVs. It's good for manufacturing. I'm
Yeah.
very pro-American jobs. I like seeing that we've got some of this stuff going on, and it's just
It's
good for
with
our
that. I
country.
mean, the people that have done it well, like there's boots on the ground already. There's iron in the ground.
Hmm.
Some of these things we've like the NEVI plan, the infrastructure corridor has been so slow. Like, well, if you haven't spent that money already, somebody can always come in and grab it. But gosh, all these manufacturing, all these there's steel in the ground, there's iron in the ground. That's going to be really hard to walk back.
Right, right. On the NEVI thing, I think a lot of the money's been appropriated,
Yep. Oh
but
yeah,
like,
yeah. It's just
yeah,
not
but
spent. I mean, it's
yeah, it's not really spent. It's just a matter of how soon, because I see a lot of that stuff. It's like, hey, these charging stations aren't actually going to be put in place till 2026.
yep.
They were looking that far ahead, and the Trump administration's complaint about that is they've only installed 8 so far, 8 chargers. It's like, well, that's a bad look, okay, and it takes some time. And just like, I didn't bring it up and talk about it on this show, but there was a recent auction. One of the companies we talked about going out of business,
Mm-hmm.
all of their charging stations came up for auction. Okay, all of these superchargers, and it was like 5,000
Oh,
superchargers, or I
oh
mean,
wow.
or
Oh wow.
it was a big
Just a
number. It was
lot.
it
Oh,
was a
that's
big number,
yeah. I think
and
when you said that, I was like, oh, like 50 of them or something. That's
that was a different deal. That was
yeah.
a different deal. That was for Shell. Those are
Yeah.
ones that Shell didn't take possession of. But the thing is, the government with this money should have been the one coming in and taking possession of those.
Yeah.
We
Hey,
need the
we have this. We
infrastructure.
have the funds allocated. We don't have to wait for the product. It's here already. Go get them.
In theory, the government bids out all this stuff, and they have winning bidders. But just because you're the cheapest bidder doesn't mean you get it, because there's other influence. People may think, hey, your quality may be better, you may donate more money to your favorite politician. There's a lot of reasons why the cheapest bidder may not get it. But in this particular case, when you can buy this stuff for 20 cents on the dollar, it would make a lot of sense for the government to be able to
Just swoop in and say
swoop in
this
and
is
take
in the
advantage of
national.
that. And to me, this is something like, if I had been Pete Buttigieg, I would have been all over this damn thing. It would have made a lot of sense. And if that could have been the last thing that he got to do as Secretary of Transportation, was acquire, all these chargers for, instead of paying 100,000 a piece for them, get them for 15 to
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
15,000 a piece, something like that. That would have been amazing. Would have been amazing to have done something like that. And, but, what do I know? The government probably just can't move that fast. And that's one of the problems too.
Probably something to that. Yeah.
Anyways, let's move on from California and Toyota, and let's see. So we're going to go ahead. We'll talk about the Australia article. So, it's funny. I even had something about EV manufacturing in Georgia. So I'm just looking
Yeah.
at my list.
There you go. It comes
So
up perennially.
the Australian authorities are warning Australians in bushfire-prone parts of the country to prepare as best they can ahead of what they say could be one of the hottest summers on record. Now, one of the big things, let's see, nationally, 65% of respondents have been impacted by a natural disaster, with 1 in 10 going 3 or more days without electricity. This is in Australia, okay? And
wait, what was that number? 3 and 10? Did you say?
3 and 10. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see this again. No, 1 in 10. 1 in 10. So 10% of the population has experienced 3 or more days without electricity.
Dang.
And let's see. Some experience power loss for more than a week or month. Now, we've previously reported on people going around using their solar to power their
Yep.
cars, and then they've been going around and helping people run everything from dialysis machines to other things that were critical for people to help them out, so they would have some power for a couple of hours a day, just running off of their vehicle to grid,
Yep.
capabilities. Did you see those huge Tesla charging station with solar panels and batteries to power the super? I didn't see any. I haven't looked at anything specifically lately. Tesla does beautiful things with batteries, and I mean, they power Hawaii with those batteries.
Mhm.
Okay, they took over. They closed coal-powered plants in Hawaii. A lot of
Yeah,
people just don't
Tesla
realize what
batteries.
all Tesla's doing
Tesla
with that.
batteries are phenomenal. I mean, what they're
Yeah,
doing in the battery space is fantastic. Now, coupling superchargers with solar, you need the optics are great, wonderful. Yeah, it looks. We want to see that. It helps. It doesn't hurt, but you would need a lot of solar panels, to really make a dent in supercharger demand. You need like acres of solar panels, not just car canopies.
now for the two big hurricanes in Florida, um, Tesla rolled megapacks, which were basically 40-foot batteries on the
Yep.
back of tractor trailers, and they rolled them to different places in Florida so that people could come and charge their EVs if there was power outages and they weren't able to access. So Tesla does just wonderful things with batteries.
Yeah, good
People,
battery. That might be their lasting. I mean, it's hard to get past the vehicles, but what they're doing in the battery space might be what they're known for 100 years from now.
yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Well, think about that, and you think about Starlink,
Mhm.
and they're trying to help people who can't get internet or and in remote locations and just different things. I mean, man, Musk has done a lot for trying to help with natural disasters, things like that. But that's on top of just basic charging. But yes, it takes a lot of
Mhm.
takes a lot of solar panels
But yeah,
to be
going
charging
back
those
to
things.
Australia and what they're doing in that space, you look at that for really remote areas, and
Hmm.
even a sedan SUV, they're not SUV, sedan EV,
Hmm.
and the capacity they have in their batteries, you could power a refrigerator for a week off of that. If there's critical medicine, if there's whatever you need to keep cool, you need some lights, I need basic refrigeration, I need, to be able to power my computer, to power my router, cell phones, charge a cell phone. Yeah, even a 40 kilowatt battery in a sedan, my goodness, like that could last a long way. And then couple that with just a little bit of solar trickle charge over time, and you could sustain for a long time on that.
I'm under the impression that Australia is one of the biggest adopters of solar on the planet. Okay, so not only they have the solar, we've already talked previously how they produce over half of the world's lithium, but
Mm-hmm.
they have all the solar, and as more and more people get the batteries and they have the bidirectional charging for the vehicle to grid, um, and you've got people that have batteries, and as HG is saying, a third of roofs in
Mm-hmm.
residential homes in Australia have solar and starting to get batteries. I'm liking the idea of these new solar shingles, rather than
Those are
just having
cool.
the
Those
panels.
are cool.
Solar shingles are a great look, but it's really helping. Down in Florida when they lost power, the only people running around really were people in EVs because they had access to electricity, but there was a shortage of gas because you couldn't get the gas down to the gas
You couldn't get
stations.
the gas. You can't pump the gas. You can't truck it through roads. Something Australia did has adopted for a long time is kind of a microgrid concept, just because rural Australia is pretty rural. And where they have opal mining or even some of those lithium mining operations, it is, you think there's parts of the US that are the middle of nowhere. It is the middle of nowhere in a desert. So they kind of changed this power grid model up where it's like, why would we build a 50-mile line to support this rural community? What if we just placed batteries, diesel, solar generation at this location? And it's self-powered and it's more resilient, it's more reliable, it's cheaper, it's all of those. So Australia is one of the very first adopters to really put that into practice, just because they are so rural in some of these locations. So they've done great things in that space, utilizing batteries and solar and diesel for backup.
So yeah, Australia is a great model for everything from where you can help with natural disasters, the EVs. You see all these things. It's like, well, what about the cars catching on fire or whatever from salt water? There was something like 16 or 17 cars caught on fire in Florida from the salt
Yeah.
water. But that was, as we said before, that meant there was something defective with the car too for that to happen. So that was an issue. And um, oh, that's pretty impressive. 0 to 100% renewable in 20 years. Um, but you know, it Australia is definitely kind of leading the way, but they want people to consider helping friends who don't have EVs, through the
Yeah.
tough times if there's
Cool.
power outages to help them be able to power up a little bit. But I would think they'd have to have some way to accept the power. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I'm sure you can run an extension cord and turn on somebody's freezer or whatever, but it's not that easy
That's
just
what
to hook up to
I would think.
someone's
It's
house.
more of the, you're not going to save the grid, but hey, do you need to go come charge your cell phone? Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you want lights at night? Run an extension cord. That kind of thing. The grid idea of, like HG's comment earlier, bidirectional charging, and everything like that's a long ways off everywhere. But in just these small use cases, no, just charge your cell phone. It's okay. Charge your power tool battery that also is a backup light or a fan or whatever you need.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward.
Well, let's just pivot over to Georgia. I had this article from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution about Georgia leading in EV manufacturing but lagging on sales. So they're the leader in EV production, but sales in Georgia aren't quite so great. But what's happened is you have companies like Hyundai and Kia and Rivian that are taking advantage of things in the IRA, and Georgia is probably one of the more favorable states to do manufacturing, and because of their laws regarding right to work and different things. And so it's creating tens of thousands of jobs. And it's just kind of funny. I'm not going to show it because of some of the messaging I have on the screen, but Republican Governor Brian Kemp obviously is really big on EVs now because he's got so much manufacturing of
Yeah,
them
'cause
in the state.
he's done well. He's done well by
Do you
EVs.
think he's not going to be talking to the Trump administration? Hey, don't be cutting
Don't
that.
turn this faucet
This,
off.
you want Georgia to keep voting for you? You probably should get a little bit more invested in this. No, but it's really interesting to see where some of that plays out, because it is funny how the states that are adopting EVs the fastest are not where they're being,
They're not
are not
making
really
yeah.
where they're being made. Although it used to be, Tesla makes in Fremont, California. Obviously, they make a lot of Teslas, but and I'm sure there's plenty of them running around in Texas, but
Yeah.
it's not the same
Fremont
as
and Austin. Yeah, Austin's
in
the
California. Yeah. Anyways, I had a couple of things we could have talked about today, but I can save them for Bill tomorrow. And so I think we've rambled on enough for today. Well, folks, want to thank you all for watching today. And, we like it when people participate. So HG,
yeah,
I like
that's
that.
great.
You can reach out to me either through LinkedIn or through my email address if you like, and maybe we'll get you on the show at some point. Um, Anyways, otherwise, folks, I'm going to go ahead and cut the show, and I'll be back tomorrow with Bill.